they were telling me to put my foot in the trash can to mush the trash down. And I was like, I'm not sticking my foot where I know I just threw away bloody gauze. No, the sharps aren't in there, obviously, but it's still
Yeah.
contaminated material. And needless to say, I did not continue to work there. And actually, the person training me did not continue to work there. So I assume maybe me being like looking at her crazy, she was like, oh, somebody needed to tell her this wasn't right too. And so maybe she saw it after that.
Welcome to Career Elevation, where we make hiring easy.
We're two former dental nerds who turned recruiters. We've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and the you will not believe this stories.
If you are ready for better hiring, better teams, and better vibes.
You're in the right place. Let's elevate your dental world and have a little bit of fun while doing it.
All right, so today we're going to talk about through the candidate's eyes, what makes a good office. Pay obviously gets people in the door, but the environment and 100 other things will end up trumping the pay once they find out if this is a good office or not a good office, because otherwise you're going to have a revolving door. So, what matters more than pay in an office? What do you think, Destiny?
The environment and the way the doctors treat their employees is a big thing for me because I've been in both kinds of offices where you're treated fantastically, you're paid adequately for that. Been in an office where you're treated like garbage and you're not paid adequately. And then I've been in one where you're paid okay and you're treated okay. You never know. I have talked with offices who pay their hygienist an astronomical amount of money, um,
Hmm.
almost too much money that you just think it's too good to be true. You want to know why? It is too
Yeah.
good to be true. And they hide it by offering you an amount of money that you can't turn down. But is that
Mm,
worth selling your soul? Pretty much. Like, do you want to cry every day going home from work? Because I don't.
yeah. Yeah. 9 times out of 10, pay is not the most important thing. It gets you into the door. However, some of those offices, like there's an office that's local to me, which I haven't seen her post in a long time, so maybe she's either upped her pay or she's just not hiring anymore. I don't know. But are the pay coming out of like when you're a hygienist, you're just getting out of school. Most people are getting paid $40 an hour.
Yeah.
Before COVID, you'd get out of school, you get paid like $28 an hour, 28 to $30 an hour. That's the jump difference that we've seen. There's an office that's local to me that she has had posted $32 an hour for the longest time. And it's super unfortunate when that happens in a lot of different ways. Now, she's a fantastic doctor. She invests in her team. She is a very good leader. She listens if you have a problem. She's a wonderful human being to the core. Her office teammates are also really wonderful. I know probably like 80% of them, they are wonderful. But that is something that is kind of a hindrance for her to get people in the door. Now, man, I feel like we could do just an episode on this one question.
I know. I was like, I
Um,
have so much to say that I'm thinking about right now.
I know, I know. Well, our last episode was like a million miles long, so maybe we shouldn't do this one super long. If people need and want more details on this, comment below so we can make more content surrounding this. Maybe we'll make a whole episode on it if you need it. But there's like a whole bunch of thoughts swirling around my brain of how to still get candidates in when you don't have a lot of pay. But sometimes, not all states, but in most states, you can leave the pay off
Yes.
and they can just assume what they want to assume.
I know we've had to do that a bit lately, which has worked out in most cases because a lot of times the offices are open to the pay conversation,
Yeah.
especially depending on the hygiene department. Because I've talked with hygienists who have been hygienists for 30 years, and they'll tell you in 2008 they couldn't find a job. They went
Right.
off and they became flight attendants or something else during that time because they couldn't find hygiene positions. Now everybody's beating down your door to come work for
Right.
them as a hygienist. I mean, you're fighting people off tooth and nail. Um, And a lot of times it all comes down to the pay. And while I completely respect that everybody wants to make the top dollar, again, how much is your soul worth? How much is your day and your emotional turmoil that you may experience at that office worth to you? Because I know for me, if an office I worked at in the past that I know treated me like I was a child and talked down to me and made me feel very belittled and made me cry every day, if they called and said, Destiny, I'll pay you $80,000 a year if you come back. While that sounds great, and I would love that, I'm not going to go back and work there. I was miserable.
Yeah.
I cried every day. Why do I want to feel that way when I could continue to work somewhere that values me as a person and makes me feel like I deserve to be treated kindly? And we all do as people. We all deserve that. It's basic human decency.
Man, I'm so glad that I've had two offices that I've worked at that I didn't really like, but I didn't come home crying every day. And I'm so grateful that I didn't have that experience. And I'm so sorry to hear that you had that experience because that so sucks, right?
No,
Like sometimes it's just like, how much longer can you hold on to this job so that you can pay down your bills or your debt or, whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, your emotional well-being and your psychological safety is infinitely more important than being able to pay down that debt as fast as you can. Because, man, also, I got to throw in there too a lot of times, if you're in the same city or in the same metropolitan area, if you work at an office because they pay high dollar, but you know that they're unethical or they don't keep team members, other people will see that job on your resume and they're going to think negatively of you if you stay there a long time. Just saying.
maybe you can
Now,
live
I
on those ethical values and they don't know.
exactly. Or why didn't you? Why didn't you see that that doctor was doing unethical things when pretty much everybody in town knows that that person, like dentistry is a small community, let's be real. So what are you doing? Like that's what we're going to think as recruiters. Now, I only know that for my city, for my area. I don't know that for other places in other cities what that seems like, but not every dental office works with a recruiter. So if you're, like if you're pulling from somebody that's in your town, you might want to have a second thought behind that candidate. Now, I have worked with other assistants in the past that they worked in the same place that I did for a while, like many, many years, and it was an unethical office, but I was only there for a few months because I was like, okay, I have to have on my resume, that I'm not going to job hop, blah, blah, blah. But she was there for a long, long time. She, in my opinion, was not unethical, but the doctor was unethical. So then it's kind of like, I don't know.
I feel like a lot of times sometimes as an employee, you can't control certain things. I know when I stepped into an office that I was gonna work at, or at least thought I was going to, they were making their cavi wipes out of paper towels and Cavicide, which don't do that. They were telling me to put my foot in the trash can to mush the trash down, and I was like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, I'm already the type to like only have certain work shoes, like those don't come back in my house. I change them and leave them in my work locker. Like, I'm not sticking my foot where I know I just threw away bloody gauze.
Right.
No, the sharps aren't in there, obviously, but it's still
Yeah,
contaminated material. And I'm so good on that.
absolutely.
So, needless to say, I did not continue to work there. And actually, the person training me did not continue to work there. So, I assume maybe me being like looking at her crazy, she was like, oh, somebody needed to tell her this wasn't right too. And so maybe she saw it after that.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes too, so the position that I was talking about, I was an assistant position. You're talking about, you were an assistant. Now, keep in mind for the audience who's listening that if you are in the front office and you have an assistant or a hygienist leave, Ask them why they left and say, I don't care if it's because of the doctor, if it's because of X, Y, and Z. I want to know what we can do better here in this office because if you are an office manager and you don't set foot in the back, maybe you have no idea about what's going on. And maybe you don't quite understand all of the OSHA things because you have another person, a lead in the back that's taking care of that for you. And where that's where like the doctor takes care of more of the clinical stuff, right? Ask because you will never know if you don't ask why that assistant left. That office manager never asked me why I left. I'm still friends with the other assistant that was
There
there.
should be
She
an
was there for
exit
like 10
interview.
years.
Like,
There should be an exit interview. I think there's so many people who are scared about exit interviews.
I
And
get that, but you know what? You're already on your way out the door. Like,
well, not always because of the candidate though. Like sometimes when
sure.
you're going to let somebody go, I think people, offices, they're sometimes scared about what the answer is going to be, or they assume they know what the answer will be, right? Now, I will say I have had to fire a lot of people in my day, between my business and my husband's business and where I've worked in the past, and it's never fun. But I will tell you, the last three people that I let go because of underperformance here at Career Elevation, all three of them have said, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to work with you, and you're wonderful and blah blah blah. So you don't always think that letting somebody go is going to be like such a bad thing, such a bad day. I let somebody go. Oh my God. It's going to make me sad just thinking about it. Maybe not sad, but like happy thoughts. Um, well, I think it was for Christmas. I had let somebody go like 2 years ago, and she sent me a message for Christmas and just said, I just wanted to let you know I still think about you all the time. She's a mom now and she wanted to stay home with her kids, but um she was the sweetest thing. And she's like, I hope that you have the best Christmas. I still think about you often. You were the best boss that I've ever had. And you don't know if you're going to have a positive experience like that, right?
Yeah.
So keep those doors friendly and open. So then maybe in the future they might feel more comfortable, or maybe ask them in 3 months down the line, hey, now that you've had a little bit of time to reflect and think and you have a new job and stuff like that, is there anything that we could have done differently or done better? Because the sourness will wear off to do after a little while. If nobody wants to get fired, right? You're going to be a little sour in the beginning, but maybe give it a month and then ask, because sometimes maybe they're not going to be so sad. They're going to see, oh, there's better opportunities for me. This actually wasn't the office for me because I was being stifled because of Amy down the aisle or something. I don't know.
I think that's where the office managers, I don't want to go off on a tangent about this because you know how much I value cross training, and I think it is so important. That could stem from me basically being forced to be cross trained in the whole office at my very first job. But I love it. And when somebody tells me they're cross trained, I value that. And I'm like, man, that's one of my positives for sure. Because you know what? That shows me that you are capable of going anywhere in the office and helping anybody when they need it. And I just think that is such a huge skill to have. And it's one of the top skills that I list when I talk with a candidate. And specifically more on the office manager side. I'm not saying an office manager has to have been an assistant or has to have worked front desk first, but I personally, as a dental professional, value when that has happened, when the office manager I worked with has either worked their way up or has, started as another position in the office because they know what I'm experiencing. They are more willing to relate to me. And that's something I would look for in an office. Is just somebody who is understanding of what maybe I'm going through that day and isn't like, well, why are you having such a hard day? You only had three patients. Okay, well, one was a root canal that we ended up having to extract, and the other was a crown that turned into a bridge prep. And this, I'm stressed out. Things changed. Somebody who's never done it and been in that spot or even, managed the schedule up front, they have no idea and they don't care. And they don't care. So
Yeah.
that's the type of people I think wouldn't ask for the exit interview. They're not going to value the constructive criticism of what can we do better as an office? What can I do better as an office manager? What can my staff in the back do better? Everything is a learning process and better for growth if you just listen to people and take it in, soak it in, understand that maybe they're not telling you you suck and you're horrible and you're the worst office manager I've ever worked with. But here's what I think you could have done better, what would have made me feel more valued as well as an employee.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe even schedule it out, after they've left for X amount of time, ask them like, I would love to contact you back in 2 or 4 weeks for that exit interview. And, think about all of the thoughts that you will have and, how can I genuinely do better? Because I think most people, I was talking with a coach last week, and he said, he works in other fields, and he said dentistry is one of the very few fields that we try to lift each other up. We try to always do better for our patients. And he works in chiropractic and in medical and in accounting and stuff like that. So I think that is so, so cool to think about, that dentistry is one of the very few places that everybody tries to lift each other up. So how can you, as the employee, help me as the manager? How
I love
can I do
that.
better for the other
I
people?
think it's all about helping each other. And I think that's what, like when we had mentioned, like, what are you looking for that's worth more than pay? And it's people who value you, people who treat you with respect, because that's a mutual thing as adults. I don't believe in that. You respect your elders. At this point, we're all elders. I'm sorry. I have lived a long life as well. And maybe you don't know what I've been through and I don't know what you've been through. So let's respect each other, and as employees, because at the end of the day, even though you're the office manager, you're still an employee. I'm an employee. The doctor could be an employee, depending if it's a corporation. It doesn't matter what your title is. Let's just get to know one another. We don't have to be friends, but we can be friendly. We can have a good day. We don't have to have any animosity in an office, which I know can form very easily when things aren't talked about, when you're not willing to hear people out. And that's where I feel like most people are like, what matters more than pay? It's that, just that feeling in general.
Yeah, the red flags, right? So, okay, let's talk a little bit more about some red flags that we can um, find or notice when we are in an interview from like the candidate's
Yeah.
point of view. So let's kind of paint a picture. So if you are on a phone interview, because most offices don't do Zoom interviews, they usually bring you in person most of the time. So let's talk about a phone interview. So if you're an office manager and you're on the other, like you're on the phone, right? Okay. And so you can hear the stuff is like being shuffled all around. You can hear that there's a whole bunch of noise in the background because there's patients all over the place. You can hear that they're eating something. You can hear that they're typing something. You can hear that they're doing other things while they're on the phone. You as the candidate, you're not gonna feel like you are gonna have the time to be able to talk to that leader. It's going to feel disorganized, right? And if the interview feels rushed because, like, oh my God, so sorry, this was on my lunch hour. I needed to do this interview before the other assistant came back, or the receptionist came back, or the patients came back. If it feels rushed and chaotic, or maybe you haven't reviewed or the doctor hasn't reviewed the resume ahead of time, and you can genuinely, like, you can feel that when you're looking through the resume, when you're in the interview process, you can see, you went to the local community college for your degree. I didn't even see that before, right? Like, if you're making comments that you're not paying attention to what is on the resume, the person on the other end is going to feel it. That's a big red flag in my opinion.
It definitely is. It's how'd you get the interview if they didn't review your resume though? That's my thing. We review our resumes. Multiple of us review all the resumes. So, but I do know that some offices are just so quick on wanting to hire somebody that they don't care. That person says they're a dental assistant. Okay, their resume says dental assistant here. They didn't even check the dates. They didn't. I can't tell you how many times I've had to reach out to candidates and say, "Hey, is this your most updated resume? Because it doesn't look like it would be." And they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's not been updated." If I wouldn't have looked at that beforehand, now I'm looking at a resume that's old that I didn't even notice. And now they know that I didn't
I saw
notice.
this text.
And
I saw those text messages come in this morning, actually, from, I don't know if it was your conversation or Elisa's conversation, that, asking a candidate about, their experience and their duration at jobs. So, it's a good thing that you're paying attention, that other people are paying attention to that. But yeah, if you're not looking at resumes beforehand deeply, why even contact them? Because ultimately you're going to save yourself some time if you do. You don't have to
We
interview
save
every single
ourselves so
person.
much time by
Oh,
that.
good Lord. Good Lord. Yeah.
Um, I think for me though, when I go into an interview, the biggest thing when I go into the office is seeing how the team members interact with one another and how the doctor interacts with them because that tells you so much. If you just take a step back while they're walking you through the office and you just listen and look, it'll tell you a lot of what you need to know. You will see it
Mm,
on their faces. You'll see it as soon as you walk in if people are unhappy or if they really enjoy where they work. You can put a facade on, but only to an extent. Um, you don't talk to your coworkers if you don't like them. And so if it's very quiet and nobody's, chatting with one another, maybe you feel like it's a professional environment, but I'm going to tell you one thing about dentistry. If you like each other, we're all chatting, we're having a great time. You know, there's offices that make funny TikToks together and stuff. That's something that I love. If I see that their offices are making social media content, I know Illuminate in
yeah.
Ohio that we work with, Kate, gosh, I love her to death. She took over their social media and she's been making the cutest videos of all of them. She just made one the other day and it was one of the assistants working and talking about all the stuff they had to do. And she's in the corner like, do you see how hard she's having to work? Somebody could be helping her right now. I don't know why nobody's helping her. And then the other assistant looks at Kate and goes, could you help? And so she hops up. She goes, "Oh yeah!" And I just thought that was so funny, and it shows me that they get along and they enjoy all working together because they're taking the time to show their patients and other people who may look at their social media, "Hey, we have a good time here." And that's something you should look for in an interview. Are they enjoying working together? Because if not, why? Where is the tension here? Because if you don't see it in the interview, you're going to find it when you work there.
Yeah. Man. Okay, story time. One of the offices that I worked at in the past, we had a team member that she was there for like 6 to 8 months, I think. I loved her to pieces. Her name was Maggie. Her name is Maggie. She's not passed away to my knowledge. But she was working at the office and all of a sudden one day she just stopped working. She no call, no showed, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, what is going on?" And I thought for sure that she would respond to my text message if I texted her
Yeah.
to say, like, what's going on. And she didn't. And so finally, like a month later, she texted and she's like, "Wendy, I'm so sorry that I ghosted you guys, but I knew that if I would put my 2 weeks in, doctor would, I would never hear the end of it." And I have another friend of mine who I was like career coaching her, and that's what she had to do too. She's like, I know that it's going to be the most miserable 2 weeks of my life if I put a notice in. And it stinks to have that happen. So anyway, so I asked Maggie what happened, right? And she's like, every time doctor comes in, it feels like it feels like I get chills. It feels like there's a ghost that's hanging around me. Like the little hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And
Nervous all the time.
yeah, and she's like, I couldn't take it anymore. I was having all of these problems, X, Y, and Z. I couldn't sleep. I was getting this and this was happening. And I was like, I am so sorry. And she's like, I knew that it wasn't a position that I could stay in anymore. And I just had to go. And I'm so sorry that I stressed you guys out. And I was like, thank you for at least telling me. Do you want me to tell the rest of the team or not? And she's like, I've told the people that I want to know. And I'm like, totally fine. And so keep that in mind when you are in an office, that if you walk into an office and it feels so cold and so sterile in the waiting room, if it still feels like that in the back and there's patients and there's team members, if you don't get that warm and fuzzy feeling, maybe this office isn't for you.
Yeah, your body tells you a lot more than you give it credit for. How you react to things.
Absolutely.
Um,
Um, I
sorry.
love, I love, like like mysteries and like murder stories and podcasts and stuff,
Rita
right?
McFadden.
Oh my God, I know. I've listened to probably half of her books at least. Um, there's also a lot of books on what your body is telling you. One of them I think is called What What Every Body Says by Joe Navarro. I think that's what the book is called. I haven't read it in like years, so excuse me if the
That's
title's
a
wrong.
cool title. I like it. I hope that's what
It
it's
is.
called.
It's very similar to that, if that's not it. Joe Navarro is the author, and he talks all about body language. A really interesting, cool book to read, if anybody is open to that. But he was an ex-FBI agent, and so he was the kind of person that would say, like, he would review footage of somebody having a conversation and trying to figure out, did this person leave because of X, Y, and Z? And that's a really fascinating book. So pay attention to the body language of all of the people that are in the office, not and not only the employees, but the patients as well. The patients can also kind of tell, are they kind of sketched out? Are they happy where they're at? Are they laughing? Do you hear any laughter? That I think is important.
Yeah, like, do these people look like they enjoy working here or being here?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I ever told you, I'll keep it short, so we go two over, but I don't know if I've ever told you my very first job, how I got the job, because it fits with what you just said. I had interviewed for it. I was a patient there and I just finished dental assisting school. They didn't want to hire me because I didn't have a lot of experience. They hired somebody else. No harm, no foul. It wasn't my, obviously I get it. Um, but they called me one like Monday morning or something like 2 weeks later, and they were like, "Hey, Destiny, would you want to come back in for another interview?" And I was like, "Sure." I get there, and the office manager tells me that they did hire somebody else. She showed up that morning, put her stuff down, went to the bathroom, and then walked out the back door
She
and
just took her
never
stuff
came
out.
back and texted. It's like noon at this point, and I'm there for this interview. And she goes, "Would you want to stay and work?" Which, like I mentioned in our last interview, keep scrubs on you. Well, you mentioned that keep scrubs on you because you never know what's going to happen. They're like, "Can you just stay and work because we need somebody. We don't know why she left." Finally, she texted the office manager back and said, "Do not ever text me again. I will not continue with employment there." I should have known then that probably shouldn't have worked there. But I was 21 years old and, was ready to start my career and was like, this is great. I see him as a patient. It's going to be wonderful. Great doctor, does great work. Clearly, the office was just, there was a lot going on there. They're not even an office anymore. So if that tells you anything,
Hmm.
uh, I should have walked out then. It was they kind of tried to blame it on something about the employment law paperwork that was in the bathroom. It was like she must have read something and must not have been able to continue working with. Okay, I should have known then too when that was said, but 21-year-old Destiny was just so excited
Oh, yeah.
about my
Yeah.
$12 an hour.
Yeah. Oh man, I get that for sure. Okay. Some other red flags. I added in here turnover, but into our notes, but I wanted to talk about this for just a second too. Sometimes turnover, when you ask the question, what does turnover look like in your company or in this office? If you hear them say, oh, let's say that you're interviewing for a receptionist position and you say, the office manager says, well, the hygienist has been here for 20 years and the other one 25 years and the assistant for 15 years and the other assistant for 10 years, and then you say, what does the longevity look like of the other receptionists? Because who is that receptionist going to work with? Just because there's good longevity in the back portion, who are you directly working with, and what does that turnover look like for that person? Because you might be working with a not so cool person to work with. I had an office manager once interview me and tell me, this is going to be a hard job. I've thrown staplers at the back of people's heads.
I won't be working here.
I did. I did. Because
See,
the hygienist worked there for like 25, 30 years, for I don't know, 40 years. She was there for like a million years.
in your mind, she
And
was joking about the staplers.
I do. I think she was joking. Thankfully, she didn't do that to me. That office manager liked me, but so I didn't get anything thrown at the back of my head. But I didn't like I was kind of on my better behavior because I didn't want something like that to happen.
Yeah.
And maybe she said that because she wanted things to go better. I don't know. I don't know. But because I heard from the hygienist that it was going to be a good experience, that the doctor was really good. It was a fantastic office, and I'm so glad that that office manager left to go to another company. And it was a great experience for me. So I'm glad that I didn't let that hinder me. But I knew somebody who I had an in, right? Like
Yeah.
it was I had a good experience of the person that was working there. So
I'm glad she didn't throw a stapler at your head on the HR perspective of that. Just from why would you say that? You just threatened that you abuse your staff. You want a lawsuit?
I
Because
know.
now you said you throw staplers, so any of the people that previously worked here, if they heard you say that, they could sue you. Let's just
Oh yeah.
bring that up. Avoid
Yeah.
lawsuits.
Ugh. The world was a different place 10 years ago. Not as much social media, but 15 years ago, whatever it was. So, anyways, I'm glad that I took that position. I'm glad that I had an in to the office. And if you don't have an in and you hear something like that, don't take that position. GTFO. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Also about
So,
having ins though, I will say this because one of the positions I was going to work at, I had an in, new assistant that used to work there, loved it there. She didn't work there anymore. Had been gone for a couple years. Things have drastically changed since she worked there. I remember calling her after my first day and I was like, girl, I don't know what's happened, but it's nothing like you described to me
ugh,
at all. And yeah, it was very shocking. And she was shocked. I was shocked. It was, yeah, you gotta watch, how long it's been since your in has worked there and if things have changed, because they might have.
oh yeah. And also too, like how is the doctor or the office manager? Like I said, throwing staplers at the back of your head. What are they saying about the last receptionist? So in that interview, I remember that office manager said something along the lines of, well, the last receptionist was an idiot, and so I threw a stapler at the back of her head. Okay. What else? Like, what happened or how were the other receptionists before that person? And so if they say something negative about more than one person or more than one instance, that should be a really big red flag. And like you were saying, Destiny, how things can change culturally over a few years' time. What does it mean to have turnover? And when you ask why is the position open? Oh, well, no one wants to work anymore. All these young kids don't want to blah 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 blah. But yes, but yeah, you can tell that you're 10 or 20 years younger than that office manager. That means that you're a young kid too. Doesn't mean that you have to be 18. I can still be a young kid. I'm
Yeah.
30, 33, I think.
Half the time I still feel like I'm half my age because, we're all just figuring life out.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I can still be a young kid to a lot of people if I were to go interview today. So what is the deeper root issue? And is that something that you want to deal with?
It's so true.
Yeah.
That office now cannot keep any staff. Which it just goes to show why did you change your culture? Why did you change the values you once upheld where you had wonderful staff, people who spoke so highly of you, you didn't have that turnover, and then now, 5 to 6 years later, things have drastically changed when it's still the same owner and the same office manager. That just doesn't make sense to me. What in your mind decided, hey, this is working, so let's try to save a little bit of money and make things really not that great for the employees and it'll still work. No, it's not. It's not going to
Right.
still work because now you've changed your environment and what the employees see when they come to work in this office.
Yeah. Uh, I think that could also be like kind of a whole nother episode.
I know, I know. I feel like we could talk forever. I don't even know if we have enough time to get through the next questions. So this may
We
be a part two.
Yes, maybe. Okay. So let's do one more point here because red flags, I think, is something that's very important that as
Yeah.
a candidate that they look at the office before they even apply, which also, if you are a hiring manager, this is what you can also do too. This is what I do before I have any discovery calls with any offices. I check out their website. Does it look super outdated? Is there a meet the team? Does the meet the team pages look super old? What does their social media look like? Is it the same people on the meet the team on the website to their social media? That in itself, I think makes a huge difference. What does their social media look like?
Is it weird to you when offices don't have meet the teams, they only have meet the doctor? Because for me, I that also is a little standoffish for me. I don't love that. Like your staff is just as important as you as the doctor. Because you're not doing
Yeah,
this without them, you know?
yeah, I don't love it. Um, my caveat to that is maybe the office doesn't have a good relationship with their website management company. That's really the only thing that I can think of. And maybe the office manager doesn't feel empowered, or maybe team members don't feel empowered to ask, how can I change this for
Yeah.
our website? Is that something that I can do? Maybe nobody feels empowered to do that. So I don't hold it against them necessarily, but what do the reviews look like? Go into Yelp, because I've noticed that Yelp, you have to click into it now in order to see the review. But if you go on your phone, you type in the maps, Yelp comes up. That's the Yelp score is what comes up on Google Maps. And fun little SEO hack too. If you make and like register your Yelp page, it makes a really big difference on if patients will search you, which if patients are searching you, candidates are searching you too. Those are the people who will in fact have a better experience, or they really want to be at your practice if they're actually saying that
Research.
they've researched your company beforehand. So,
That's always a notch in my positives when I'm talking to
or
someone. If they say that, like, oh, I learned this. This is a good example because I just had a Zoom interview on Friday with a candidate who I spoke to on a phone interview the Friday before, but she could not do a Zoom any earlier than the next Friday. And she said, I really don't want to miss out on the job. I said, don't worry about it. Like, I will make sure to let the doctor know that I have this one candidate that's not going to interview till Friday. If I have anybody else beforehand that's worth sending over. I adored her and I think she's going to be awesome. But she talked so highly of all the research she did on this office and what she learned about them. And she even knew that this specific doctor likes to bike. And she said, I like to bike too. I just don't live in the best area to bike all the time. She's like, but sometimes I put my bike in my car and take it to work and then I bike after work. And I was like, you know what? I love that you know that about this doctor and you really took the time to get to know her, even though you're not sure that you even get to meet her because we're on Zoom. So I just thought that was wonderful. And it's something that I hold as value as a recruiter that you took the time to do that because it shows me you actually want a long-term position, not just a job. You don't want me to just put a butt in a seat.
yeah, and if the listener knows anything about career elevation, we preach that we are not a butt in a seat kind of office, kind of people. We want to make sure that it's the right fit, not for today, but for not eternity, because let's be real,
Because we
but we
know
want
it's life.
to, yeah, we want to make sure that it's a good fit long term. So, which leads us into the next thing. What
Yeah.
makes somebody will Destiny, I'm gonna reel it in and make sure to my answers are not long.
All
So
right. Me too. I'm not even going to give any stories.
I feel like I've talked a lot in this episode, and so I apologize. You're just sitting over there nodding your head like you are enjoying my conversation.
I am. I
I
feel
have
like this
to.
is probably how I look on interviews half the time. I'm just intaking everything because I'm very bad about interrupting. It's the ADHD. I can't help but want to relate to what you're saying. And then if I wait too long, I might have forgotten what I was going to say until it comes back to me. So if you ever talk to me, sorry, ahead of time. Um, so there's that.
You're so good. You're so good. So going back to what makes somebody stay long term at an office, what do
I
you
feel like
think?
that leads back to everything we've discussed. It's the absence of these red flags. Obviously, every office may have a red flag or two. Nobody's going to be perfect. You're not perfect as a candidate, I promise. I'm not perfect as a recruiter, and that's okay. We're human beings, and that's a question that we ask a lot is what is a weakness of yours? Like I said, mine is interrupting and over speaking. Sorry. But I just think having a team that values you and the leadership that is willing to jump in and do whatever's needed to make the office work so that they're not specifically like office managers and stuff, they're not holding themselves up in the office saying, hey, figure it out. And then when they don't want to help with anything, but then they want to come yell at you that production's not where it needs to be. Well, where are you here? Like, we need to be a team. The machine only works if it's well oiled, and we all have to do that together. So I think that for me is where staying long term is having a team that just values one another, works together, respects you. Again, you don't have to be my best friend. I get it.
Mm.
I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Don't drink it. But we're going to work together. We're going to have a great day. And I'm going to go home and I'm going to feel good about myself. And I'm going to want to come to work tomorrow still to do work because we're not having animosity between each other. I'm not feeling like I'm going to come in here and you're giving me the death stare because I forgot to sterilize that one instrument before we left yesterday.
Mhm. Mm. Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to be anyone's cup of tea. And it's good when people notice that and recognize that. I think that's
That took me a while, I will
yeah.
say. And if you're still in that people pleasing phase of your life where you think if someone doesn't like me, it means I'm doing a bad job. That's not what it means. And even if somebody tells you you did something incorrectly, it doesn't mean you did a bad job. It just means we need to adjust.
Mm.
And I don't know if it's after I turned 30, but I just finally figured out, you know what? I can learn new things and do better. Even though I'm doing a good job right now, it doesn't mean I'm doing my best. There's
Mm.
always more out there to do. So
I mean, even owning this business and doing this and being the leader of our team, there's a lot of times where I reflect back to what I did the year before and how far we've grown as a team. And if you as a leader can recognize um, what where were you a year ago and how have you gotten to where you are today? And if you think that it's 100% because of you as the office manager, you probably have some reflecting to do because it takes a whole team, it takes a whole village. And I tell people all the time, I am not the only one doing it. And there's people out here that are like, oh, but you need to take the, what is it like, take the compliment. And I'm like, but legitimately, if I didn't have my team, I wouldn't be here today. I took several days off last week because I was sick. If I didn't have my team, I can't even imagine what my schedule would look like today. Because I allowed my team to take over some responsibilities that I had, that I was like, I want this to get done, but I am just laying in bed and all I can do is sleep. Okay, I said that I was going to be quick and I'm
you
not being quick,
you
so.
were, you're fine. Um, but that's where the whole thing comes to a conclusion is find a place. I don't want to say feels like home because apparently that's taboo now. People don't want to hear that a workplace feels like home. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I want to work somewhere where I feel valued and I feel like Wendy said, cares enough about me to also, you know, give me a compliment when she receives a compliment because we are all a team together. And in a dental office, you have to be. No one person keeps an office running. That doctor is not going to come in there and run that office by himself or herself. Like, could they probably figure it out? Yes. Are they going to be absolutely mentally drained more than doctors already are? Because if you don't know the statistics on dentists, it's not good. Very stressful field to be in. That's a whole nother podcast we should discuss because it just
Mm.
is. People like downplay dentistry as it's not medical, it's not as important. Okay, but an ER doctor is allowed to have PTSD and allowed to feel these things, but then you think a dentist doesn't feel all these emotions too. Meanwhile, dental insurance is way harder than medical insurance.
Oh, good
They
Lord.
don't want to
Yeah.
pay. So I just think altogether, finding an office where you walk in and it feels warm in your soul. You feel like this is where I could be. Now, if you walk in and you instantly your heart ices over and you're like, this feels off, it's probably off.
Yeah.
It probably is. It's probably not right if you feel that way from the get-go. I get that feelings a lot when I'm on an interview. When they say
Mm.
something and I'm just instantly like, well, why did you say this? And then they backtrack and they're like, oh, that's not what I meant. Now I have a very cold feeling inside me that something's off.
Mm. Yeah. Trust your gut. As I feel like I have probably instilled that in you a lot from the first time that you started interviews. Trust your gut it is more times right than wrong, and just go with it. So,
What's funny is we're interviewing for a regional manager right now. I'll make this short, but I've had a couple in the past few weeks, like three at least, who, I mean, absolutely just bombed the interview. And I was like, do they have the experience? Could they do the job? Yes. But the interview wasn't great. And I would send them the no thanks message and they would respond, I knew I didn't do well. I knew, and it makes me feel validated in that point of like, you know what, at least I remember what I am supposed to be doing as much as I want to give everybody the job I can.
right, absolutely. Okay. So we talked a lot about through the candidate's eyes, what makes a great office. Like I said in the beginning, pay gets you in the door. The environment decides whether they stay. So that's going to be a wrap today. If today's episode gave you a laugh, a tip, or maybe a little sanity, hit the follow button and share this with somebody else in dentistry who needs a tiny little miracle in their hiring life.
We've got more stories, strategy, and sass coming your way.
Until next time, stay elevated.